Good evening, everybody. I welcome you all to this Facebook page of International Association for Performing Arts and Research, IAPAR. As some of you would know, we are having this series, Tuesdays with. गेल्या महिन्यापासून आपण ही एक सिरीज सुरू केलेली आहे. नाट्य कला क्षेत्रातल्या ज्येष्ठ मान्यवर मंडळींबरोबर आपण गप्पा मारतो. त्यांच्याकडून जगण्याविषयी, कलेविषयी काही गोष्टी विचारून माहिती करून घेतो, समजून घेण्याचा प्रयत्न करतो. We try to look at the way these senior people have lived their life in art, in the context of art, in their own ways. So in this series today, we have a senior poet, theater practitioner, known arts and cultural administrator, manager, Mr. Tobias Biancone. I welcome you, Tobias, to this conversation today. Tobias is the Director General of International Theatre Institute, ITI, which is an affiliate NGO of UNESCO. Tobias might be talking about it a little later. So I'm very happy that he is here today. He has been my friend, philosopher, guide, kind of. He has been helping us a lot. He has been very kind to IAPAR and helping us to figure out various ways of connecting the Indian artists with the artists around the world. So welcome, Tobias. Thank you for coming today. And I would like to ask you first question, and we start that way. I mean, when we met, it is not very, very long back. It is just maybe just the same decade. So I'm very curious to know that how you were when you were young and how you got attracted towards poetry, towards literature, to theater. I'm curious to know about that journey.
Okay. I welcome everybody as well. I'm here in Switzerland. It's noon. So it's a pleasure to talk to you, to India. India was one of my first major countries I visited. And you asked me when I was young, I had long hair, I had a beard like you have. And but the closer I came to India, the shorter the hair became. So we were taking the way over land, over Turkey, over Iran, etc., until we arrived in the first place was Mumbai, which was Bombay at that time, and so it was for me a culture shock. So then I have been in India again, and now it's a country I love. Like it's really good. So how did I start? Like I come from a family who was always very much inclined to the arts. I went to the school where arts were very important. And so when I was 10 years old, I already painted in school. I did like clay sculptures, and we learned poems by heart, etc. And so slowly, I found that the art is interesting, music is interesting, and I joined a band. First, we played. I played the drums, and then first we played more like pop songs, etc. And then we became very experimental. So our band had a singer, guitar player, somebody at the cello, and somebody at the harmonium, and which is like with pedals. You were giving air to like kind of a piano, and then with me at the drums and percussion. So this was the beginning. But then at one point I was more inclined to write poems, and so that's how I became a poet.
All right. Now I would like to ask you the next question then. Then when you began your journey with the poetry, then how you moved on, and how did you shift to theater making, and then eventually getting into the policy part of it?
I think if you look at my history, like I was always inclined, I loved always theater, and I consider myself a culture person, somebody who really cares for the culture, cares for the roots of the culture. And that's how at one time, I started to write plays. And then I was invited to attend the first ITI Congress in 1989. And I was always an activist for theater before in Switzerland. And that means the more I was diving into it, the more I loved it, the more I was dedicated, and the more I was attached to theater. But in my heart, I feel a culture person and a poet and a theater activist. That's how I would think of myself.
Okay. Now, as you mentioned, being a poet and being a theater practitioner, how do you look at the role that languages play? I mean, yourself, you speak and understand several languages. So in theater making, what is the role of language? Because in India, many times we see that the way theater has evolved, it has evolved around different languages in India. There is Marathi theater, there is Bengali theater, there is a Kannada theater, and there is this overarching idea of Indian theater. So how do you look at this relationship between language and theater?
I think theater plays an important, language plays an important role in theater. But if I want to talk a little bit more like about my experience, when I travel around the world to India, to Bangladesh, and to other countries, and then when I see a play played in a language that I don't know, and if it's a good play, the language is, the content is transcending the language. And I have seen one play in Bangladesh where the group were playing about how Bangladesh is suppressing its own people at the border of Bangladesh. And it was extremely well performed in their traditions, with drumming, with having a square stage, and they were part of the square was the people who performed, and then there was the rest of the square was the audience. And they were really inspiring me without understanding the language, because they were good actors, they were very convincing in their statements. And I only knew this line, which I told you, and it was really amazing. So from my viewpoint, it's language is not really, it's important, the language. It's part of the roots. And if the roots are really well played, good acted, well directed, etc., then it touches you, and then the language becomes not so important. But in itself, the language for the poet, for the playwright, it's important to do it. And I think it's if I prefer to hear it in the language that are not. That I prefer to hear you playing in Marathi than you playing in an English language, because it's your mother language.
Right, very true. I mean, in India, many times we say that the way theater has evolved, it has evolved around the playwright. We also have one very known critical book called Playwright at the Center. So it is the language and the word that matters most. But eventually it is also, we always say that theater has its own language. So if you don't understand a particular language, if it is a theatrical piece, then you still understand what is happening and what is going on in terms of visuals and everything that happens on stage. All right.
I totally agree.
Yeah. Here, let me introduce our artistic director, Aditi Venkateshwaran, who is with us here in this conversation today. Welcome, Aditi. I'm glad that you are here.
Okay, that's it. That sounds so strange coming in such a like a formal thing, because to be very honest, like I decided and agreed to be a part of this only as a tech person, but I have been successfully dragged on online.
So, no,
But
because I always believe that all these kind of conversations, we need to have a combination of slightly older people, not very old, young at heart, but slightly older people, and also some young people who can have these kind of interactions, and we can learn from each other. So, Aditi, over to you.
no, I am actually very happy, and I think I am as much a part of this session as everybody who's watching it. We have like a lot of our friends from across the globe who are waving at us and saying hello. So there's Manju who's watching us from Nepal, and then there's Ashutosh, and Atsushi is of course waving from Japan, and Ajay is here in India. There's Sam from Philippines, and so it's really coming together of a whole lot of like friends all across the globe who are um, sort of sailing through the same boat, more or less. But I am actually very happy and very glad, Tobias, that you shared the earlier part of your journey, especially in India, because it's actually quite unbelievable to believe that you were in a band and then that little hairdo and all of this. Because every time I've seen you, I've sort of looked at this wise, quiet man who probably was just born this way. So so it's very reassuring to know that there's a long journey we all have to make, and there's like a lot that one needs to learn. So I feel like this whole series was an interesting journey between different worlds, different languages, different ideas. So we spoke to Professor Ram Gopal Bajaj, then Dr. Shamla Vanarase, and now you. So bringing in like Hindi, English, Marathi, several other languages from across the globe. How are you reacting to this coming together of everything at the moment, and coming together of everyone at the moment? Really now boundaries are just, I mean, on paper, so to speak. So like, how are you re-looking at the world now, probably?
Yeah, I think it's not for me. I tell you, like at the first moment, it is a shock when you have to adapt your life to being in a lockdown. But in the other, if I look at my life, like I spent a lot of time working alone, creating ideas, creating poems, etc., etc. So this is not so much a change. It's more you have to accept that this is something different, and you have to make the best out of it. So I understand this is my own vision, because I'm not a stage director, so I don't. Or I'm not an actor who needs to be on stage, or a photographer who told me this morning he's a portrait photographer. He cannot do his job at the moment because he's too close to the people. So I think, but for my work, it meant even doing more, even being more in communication with people, use all the technologies that are around, getting adopted to the technologies, etc., and really do something about it so that people don't be in despair and don't be alone. And at the beginning, what I did when I felt I was alone, I was just writing emails or picking up the phone and calling people. And then you see, oh, they first you share a little bit the situation, but basically I follow a bit of what is going on, but not too much at the moment. And I can see in our area now, I think people are tired to hear the words COVID-19 and Corona, because they want to live. And also you can see now we open up in Switzerland in May 11, it opened up. And then I think last Saturday I was in the city. Nobody cares about the distancing anymore, which it's not really what I follow, but the new infections are the same. So the people, you can feel the people really, really want to do what they always were doing. And even I know from a German theater who has now the ability to rehearse, and I think it will be. I think for me it's not so much each such pandemic or when AIDS was out and when after World War II, when ITI was created, people change. This is clear. But I think what is very important is what is theater? What is poetry? What is the essence of poetry? What is the essence of theater? Let's research that. And it's not, for me, it will be at one day when there is a cure or more medical help, it will go back to what we have experienced, and it's more, what do we learn out of it? What is the thing with it, and how can it make the performing arts stronger? How it can be your group, yourself, how can it how you can really turn it to something positive. That's what I'm looking at, and for me it just means more work. Like I worked really sometimes at 2 o'clock in the morning just to finish a newsletter that goes out to all the ITI members and friends.
Tobias, you have traveled extensively all over the world, and you have seen a lot of theater, various forms, styles, practices. I have this question for you, that before this corona thing happened, how did you look at theater in the context of 21st century before corona? And now how do you look at it? What do you see happening? I would like to know both the things, that before the corona happened, what was your idea or your thoughts about the way the world theater was moving ahead? And with this corona, what do you think, what has happened and where it is likely to lead?
Prasad, I would like to look a little bit more at culture. Just at the moment at theater, it's difficult because you can say they have no possibility to perform, which is very bad and which should be lifted as fast as possible as the situation is doing it. You cannot unite, we cannot do a World Congress, etc. So this is bad. But I look a little bit at culture. I transfer your questions a little bit at culture. I became aware around 2 years ago that basically in this world, people love culture, but governments don't put any big accent on culture. And the fact is that when you look at the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, like there is no point about culture. There is no point about arts education for culture. And that is for me the mirror, what is happening on the world. Like, why do they think last of the theater people, of the artists? Because people are so much in a world where they say, oh, this is important, and we, as members of ITI, we value culture. Most of the people, they value everything, dance, music, theater, any form of it. But then when you would go to your government and say, okay, please support us, then they say, no, we have now to do this and this and this. And when you then look at all the speeches of wise people, they say culture and the arts is basically the motivation, the motor of bringing a society into a good state. And this is absolutely not looked at, not envisioned. And I know that some organizations are now trying to bring culture into the Sustainable Development Goals in 2030. You can hear what I say, in 10 years, so that culture becomes more important. And I think this should happen now. This should happen now, because now people feel how important their own culture is, how important theater is, how important it is to be able to express oneself. So this is my thoughts at the moment. And this is a little bit, it's more urgent for me at the moment than it was maybe before the virus was around.
Okay, I actually have one question, and it's actually quite a conundrum. What is happening is, over the last few years, and more often it happens everywhere around the world, more so in India, and a lot of young artists in India are constantly complaining about the lack of funds or support and infrastructure and all of this. And then something like this hits us, where you are sort of put into the last section of the pyramid in terms of looking at emergency services and then all of that. So culture and art and all of this that we are discussing and talking becomes, you really start questioning a lot of things, because suddenly you're out of job and it's not relevant what you are doing, is what a lot of younger, I feel like people who are not there yet, who are somewhere in between trying to find what they want to do, what happens is it becomes difficult to keep going, because a lot of things are just you don't have answers to. Like, over the last few days we've all been talking about, it's not about what now, it's about how do we begin again. Maybe a part of it you've already answered by telling us what happened in Switzerland after the lockdown opened, like sort of people went back or are trying to go back to their normal life. But how do you look at young professionals, young career artists dealing with situations like this? Because suddenly you're not emergency service, you're not on the top of the grid, but you are somewhere there, towards the lower side of the spectrum in a cultural society setup.
If you ask me, like, when I look at this situation that the performing arts or culture is not in the sustainable development goals, like then you think, hey, oh, bad governments. But you also can say, what did the artists do? Like, what did the artists unite to bring it in? What is the situation of the culture people? What was their thing? Did they unite? And you see, like politics, when all politics enter into the performing arts, etc., it's always not what it should. The kind of politics should be in there. But if you say, okay, the left people are bad, the right-wing people are bad, etc., etc. No, like, I think what is very important, each being on the world, he has a sense of culture. And it's of the culture people who should put fire, put the spark on the people, so that they start to appreciate what this culture is doing, that they, whatever they would like to do, they go to a concert, they go to a pop concert, they go to a classical concert, they go to a play, they go to a children play, etc. So it's the culture people need to be more aware that they should be united and work for convincing the others. And it's very easy to blame you, or, okay, you didn't ask me these questions, that's why you're bad, or me, I didn't answer the question, so I'm bad. No, the culture people, and especially the theater people, they are the specialists for dialogue. So let's go do dialogues and find best practice how we can convince people. I give you one example. The Music Council, the International Music Council, a partner organization of ITI, was also based at UNESCO. They had one principle. When, let's say, in Sweden, they would like that the law is supported by parliament and government. So they say, okay, who is the government accepting? So, okay, they know the Björn from ABBA, he's accepted. Okay, they say, Björn, can you come with us to meet the leader or the Minister of Culture? And they take him with him, and he's there to open the doors. And I think really to use best practice to convince the people. Like, if I would go with them, that would really mean nothing, and probably without being a musician, I would even be useless, and the Swedish people would not get any invitation to meet the governor. So it really needs more a uniting spirit and a best practicing spirit. And then, as we are all individuals, you're an individual, you want to do what you want to do on stage. Prasad wants to do what he wants to teach and wants to do the things he wants to do on stage. And the most important thing I think is like, never give up, never give up. So just keep your, like if you think, okay, my idea was not good, go and walk a little bit in the nature and settle your thoughts, etc. and think about what is it all about. Or now when you have to stay at home, instead of looking at the television, just think about and read a book and think about what is my goal, what would I like to achieve. And this is, if I look back into my life, and if I look back in those who in my vicinity who became famous people, etc., they never gave up. They never gave up, and they had really similar problems, hard problems, no money, divorce, whatever comes with life, and they never give up. And thanks to their spirit to keep this flame, or keep this spiritual flame that is in the arts, to keep that helps them to do a good job. And if you look at many people, like even Marlon Brando, they were not just famous actors. They had times of despair, like when they was thinking, some have luck all the time, but some had difficult times. So don't give up.
Yeah, that helps. But also one more thing to add on to this, there's also this other thing that we've been seeing for the last few days, is also an arrogance and a sort of an alienation of artists that say that art has changed everything and that we are the ones who are literally healing and saving the world. So there are these two spectrums, and then there are these 2 points extremes, and more often than not, a lot of us romanticize what we do so much to an extent that we become narcissistic about it. And that is also slightly, I mean, it's damaging in ways more than one. So what about the young, restless, little too much in love with themselves artists?
This is always like kind of an egoism, I think, which hinders the things to be done well. I think this is I agree with you that this is a big danger, that you think, okay, it's kind of building up a hegemony, and culture in itself has no hegemony in it. It's not somebody is better than the other. Like, we are all equal. I believe in that, and I treat people like that. If one is on this world, we have different abilities. I cannot program any computer. Other can do this with expertise, etc. And I think if you look at you and also at Prasad, like when you are on stage or behind the stage, what are you doing without the audience? The audience is part of you. And I think this is the same thing. Like, you cannot say, oh, we are doing a good job. Like, this is a consumerist viewpoint. And that entertainment people say, oh, we are doing such a good people love us, etc. But what about the people in the audience? How do they have access to the arts? How can they be educated in the arts? How can they bring the arts into their community? This is much a bigger picture than just, oh, there is a big guy, a big shot, or a big lady, and who is doing the job for all the rest of the world. No, it's not like it's a unity, and it's equal. And hegemony, arrogance, no. No, I don't hear you.
Yes, I'm back.
Yeah, okay.
There is some network issue, but I think Prasad is trying to reconnect. But there is someone, there's Raghu, who's from UK, who's watching us, and he has a comment. Would you like to respond to that? Yeah. Raghu is a professor of mental health from UK, and he's a wonderful, wonderful person. He's saying, I think this is about how arts and creative approaches can act as a vaccine to combat distress and promote health in these uncertain times. So he's talking about how arts and creative approaches can sort of act as coming together to ease the distress. So would you like to respond to what he's saying?
Okay, I can. I disagree. I disagree because I think if you look, art is an essential essential. I don't know. It hasn't. It's not material. It's not, cannot be compared to vaccine. Arts is an inspiring source. An inspiring source is more a spiritual impulse that goes between the actor and the person in the audience, etc. And this is, for me, it's much more important. Like, imagine, like, if you don't have songs to sing, if you don't have any poems to recite, if you want, there is an immaterial part of it, and this is something which is there, and this is something which should be much more. It should make people immune before they get an illness.
Talking of songs and poems, Mrinalini has messaged us saying, we would love to listen to a poem, or you talk about it. Would you like to?
No, I cannot do this. I cannot do this. I can do this in another occasion, like, or I can. She can send you the email, and I send her a written poem, and then she can read it. He or she can read it.
For sure. Would you take us a little bit on your poetic journey, your journey as a poet? Mm-hmm. Maybe a little thought about looking back on that front.
Yeah, I think when I was young, I organized festivals which were doing the World Poetry Day, and we called it Poesie Festival. Poesie is basically the German word for poetic essence. And our approach was that poesy is in plays, in music, in prose writing, in performances of artists, etc., in pictures, etc. So we were doing 3 days, and we were really much more just going for the poetic essence. And I think for me, first of all, at the moment, since I have this job since 12 years, I'm more able to write a poem than a play or anything longer. So that this is a good way to communicate or to create, etc. And for me, the poems are, I don't know, I didn't need it as a vaccine. I didn't give them as a vaccine. I just really thought I would like to inspire people. And they are not so much based in my roots, but they are more rooted in, I would say, rather a spiritual approach, Zen approach, something like that. And then some people like it, and I'm happy when I see that they have a good effect. But I'm not. How can I say? I think you look. Basically, I look in the poetic essence of life. And when I go into the nature, I look at the trees, etc., and I feel amazed. I feel amazed. And when I read a good poem by a colleague or by somebody who lived before, I'm amazed as well. And for me, it's a source of inspiration.
Amazing. Wow, that's quite Quite a way to put it. And Prasad is back. Yay!
I'm sorry, there was some glitch with the network, so I got logged out. Tobias, I don't know what you have spoken in last few minutes, but I'm just going to go back to the earlier conversation that Aditi was talking to you about. These days, many a times, artists believe that we need to have a political stand in the current scenario. There is one section of people who believe that artist has to take a political stand. There are some people who believe that we are artists, so whatever we want to say, we say it through our artistic expression. And some people say that the act of creating something and making something artistic in itself is a political statement. So how do you look at it, and how do you think of all these three, or probably more possibilities?
I think in itself, like what ITI members are doing, and also me, what I can do, you can always give it a political touch, but it's not the political from one party against another party. And I tried to be in a political party. After three sessions with the board of this party, I said goodbye. I'm not hating other people who are in another party. So I said, no, this is nothing for me. And I cannot be a party member as an artist, because I cannot follow a political, how do you say, manifesto, or follow the others, because I'm just of the main party. I'm an individual, and I try to convince other people that culture and the arts are extremely important. The theater, the performing arts is extremely important, and I try to convince the people. You see, like if you go part to be part of a political party, it's for me it's not possible. I tried, and for me it's just like, if I like one person, I vote for him because I think, oh, he's doing a good job, but maybe he's in the wrong party. You cannot do this if you're part of a political party, at least not in the country I live or in the city I live. I think one should, I rather would lead people to convincing work, to look for information that other people say, oh, this is interesting, I didn't know. And when writing about theater, or when I'm with the Network for Higher Education, the Performing Arts, when I write an introduction to a book about sophisticated, interesting terms about Chinese theater, for instance, then at my end they say the goal of whatever I do should be go to the theater and look at it at yourself. You like it, you don't like it, that's another question. But bring the people into the theater, bring the people to a poetry reading, bring the people to a dance performance, and help the people who are creating dance and theater and poetry to do a good job, and make people aware that culture is in our nature. It's in your nature. Like if I go to Pune and I'm meeting people there and from Pune, then I feel totally another culture. And this is your culture. It's not my culture, but I feel I can appreciate it. And I think this is the goal we should follow, and we should try to do this convincing work. Some people might do it with politics, but I think it's a long way to go. But people experience, if you talk with somebody, said, oh, a theater institute, what are you doing there, etc. And then I talk a little bit with them, and they say, oh yeah, this must be a good thing to do. So people, most of the people don't understand what an artist is doing, what a theater person is doing. So the best thing to do is bring them into your theater, show them what you are doing. That's the political work we have to do.
In current context, again, I have a question about what you said just now, that we have to bring them to theater. But at this point, we really don't know when we can do that. And there is a very peculiar scenario all over the world that we don't know whether people would be allowed to enter into the theaters in any public gathering spaces. And at the same time, connecting it with the politics that is an inevitable part of any society in the modern world. Do you think that even the political discourse is changing because of this corona pandemic scenario?
No.
And do you think that any artist has a role to play in it?
Yes, for the second one, yes. But I don't think, you see, like, how is politics built up? Let's say, for instance, in the United States, there is the Democrats and the Republicans, and then they fight against each other instead of having a government who is there for everybody, and not from this side and not from that side. And when you look at the politicians, they look at the next election. This is true in Switzerland and a local party. And it's true for the whole country of Switzerland, and it's true in any other countries. Like, then they are there, they promote you that you will have, everything will be better, etc. And then it will be either worse or equal. And if you're lucky, then it will be a little bit better. But I think politics are short-term, too short-term, and they are they are too manipulative in many parts of the world. And then as long as this is short-term, then we are looking at the long-term. You would like to have a creative society. We would have to have a society where people are able to say what they need to say, where they have the freedom to put something on stage, etc. And we are really there for a noble cause. At least for ITI, I can say this is a noble cause, what we are doing. We want to bring peace on earth. We want to enable people to do their job. And I think these politicians, I have not so much trust. I'm sorry, I don't have too much trust. Like, I can only talk in the country where I am. I don't have too much trust. And for an artist, it's like, for a free artist, it's always difficult to say, okay, now there is one leader of the party who tells you what to say. And I guess we should, the culture people should take it as a chance to make themselves stronger, unite themselves, and to help the government to formulate good policies, to look what other countries are doing, etc., and then go to their country if they don't do anything. For instance, for the free artists at the moment, the freelance artists, that they say, look, let's say in Germany, they get money from the state. In Switzerland, they can get money from the state. So show them other countries are doing something for the artists, and tell the others, listen, we should do the same. And really start convincing them that the job is important. And this doesn't work with arrogance, from my viewpoint. But maybe sometimes it does, but from my viewpoint, it does not.
I have a question, actually. When you in that last few minutes, you've mentioned this coming together and uniting of the forces, especially people in the culture field and artists. And there is a constant debate between being independent performers versus committing to agencies and institutions. Now, coming from a body like ITI, which is a huge space in itself, and then there are independent, smaller chunks who want to voice out their things. And sometimes when institutions are formed, the union or the reason or the coming together, or let's say the purpose with which this coming together happens, begins to fade out. So it's really, I mean, how do you look at institutions versus individuality? Because if I belong to an institution, but I don't really understand the philosophy or sell it, how am I looking at coming together then in a personal space with people without institutions? It's actually quite confusing for all of us, because you want to make a difference, you also want to belong, but you also want to stand out. I don't know if I'm being clear, but it's...
No, I understand. It's a very difficult question. You see, like, you need to unite, and you need to find solutions, best solutions. And for sure, like ITI is a good example. It's based on democracy, and it's based on majorities. And if the majority is wrong, then the decision might be wrong. But this is democracy. And I think in ITI, I believe that most of the people, they adhere to ITI, to the International Theatre Institute, because they think, I can have an influence, I can connect, I can build up peace, I can bring people from fighting tribes or nations together, and they can do something for peace building, or they can work in communities and bring people into the theater, or make people to create community theater. And there are many, they go to prisons, like in Italy, there's a strong movement, theater in prisons, where they play with the inhabitants of the prisons and make a change. And it's sure, individualism and being in an institution is always, but it's always difficult, or it may be very difficult, but it's not the way that if you are part of ITI that you give up your individualism, not at all. Like when I look at all the people like Prasad, you and all the others around the world, they are individuals, and they know what they want, and sometimes they agree with me and sometimes they don't agree with me. So it's not so much, but it's also, let's say in a meeting, somebody says, oh, it's black, and the other one says it's white, and the next one says it's yellow. And then finally we think, oh, okay, maybe it could be yellowish. And then everybody says, why not? Okay. So it's a decision that goes into as long as it's a noble cause and it's not egoism, not power games, then it works. But if somebody says, okay, I'm the boss and you have to do what I say, then it doesn't work. So this is a little bit the situation which I see, and I'm an individual, that's for sure, but I can have also common thoughts and unite with others. It's okay?
Yeah, I guess.
Yes, it's also just something Prasad always says to me, and I have like these debates with him very regularly. Like he always mentions that institutions will stop growing if the individuals stop growing, and I feel that's it's important. And what you said was also.
Yeah, and you see, like I remember my first times in meetings of ITI in Switzerland. I was just silent. I just was listening, like I was, I didn't understand all these abbreviations. So I just listened. But then when there was a point, even in international ITI meetings, when something I disagreed, and I said it. And sometimes it had a good effect when I said something bad, and sometimes they ignored. But it's okay. This is life, and it doesn't mean that I change my individualism.
Yeah.
Tobias, a couple of days ago, I was having some conversations with friends from Kolkata, Ashish Goswami and Subhajit. And in our conversation, this one question came up, and which keeps on coming up, especially in India, in different parts of the country, that there are several individual artists who are struggling a lot. And they are worried. They are worried for the fact that they can't earn their bread and butter until we are allowed to perform. And the question was how to deal with this very basic scenario, which is connected with survival. And one of the youngsters asked me that, would you ask a newcomer or a new, fresh, aspiring actor to be extra careful while getting into this field, or would you dissuade that person to enter into this field, especially in the this new context? What do you think? Where what should these youngsters who have decided to jump in the dark in a way, with the belief that they want to do something in the creative field and they want to create some theatrical piece and or pieces and then survive, and right now exactly that is what they cannot do. How to respond to this?
I think, you see, like if you have the motivation to become an actor or an actress, and then I think the person really should make the best out of it. Like if she cannot perform or he cannot perform, he should do as much online courses or research or do whatever she can do and he can do. And I think it's a little bit like if you would tell your father, I want to become a medical doctor, and then you would say, okay, I want to do it, and I see no difference. If you want to be an actress or an actor, then it's up to you. And it's always like this: what doesn't kill you, and it will make you stronger. And in this situation, use it, that it makes you stronger, that you are much more determined. I know the factor of earning money, etc., is a difficult question, but I think if there are many people that know that other countries do it differently, like let's see how you find sponsors, how you find noble people, donors, or even the government or government agencies who say, okay, we want to support you. So that you can do something and really look for possibilities. But to give up, that's the wrong side. That's absolutely the wrong side.
All right. Tobias, I have just one more question for you before we move towards the end part of this conversation. And the question is about ITI and the kind of work ITI has been doing, and last 2 months, what is happening and how the ITI as an institution is looking at this scenario globally, and what are the initiatives or thoughts or ideas that ITI is trying to bring forward?
I think we did World Theatre Day, we did International Dance Day, and we did also encouragement. We asked people to send us message of encouragement, which we put on the ITI website, like letters, like videos, anything that people are giving out for other people what they think, and the response was for this encouragement, support, and love messages was immense, and we could see that honorary presidents were writing. Artists were writing, and they showed like there is a huge solidarity for theater all over the world, and for theater people, for ITI all over the world. And I think this is shows that the ITI members are doing a really good job in this time. And for instance, Croatia asked young people to give statements, and now they publish it, etc. And I think this is they do things for their community, and they do things for the worldwide organization. And I feel a lot of support, a lot of and it's also interesting that criticism is fading out at the moment. It's much more, oh, it's good, continue to do, we have to make the best out of it. And I'm very happy about that. Like, this is good. It's not, we cannot say, it's paradise now, it's rather hell. but let's not forget it can be better, and let's individually and together let's create a better world. And let's really not forget that we would like to have mutual understanding and peace on this earth.
Absolutely, in agreement with you, Tobias. What you said, it makes an immense sense, and I believe all the artists, all the performing artists around the world need to think about it. That when we are moving ahead from this pandemic scenario, when we are moving ahead from this lockdown kind of situation, we should always, as you said, we should continue to do what we are doing, and we should not forget about our fellow human beings who are on this planet, and move ahead together. The together word is very important, as you underlined while speaking. Tobias, towards the end, before I thank you, do you want to say anything specific to the audience here, or to the theater fraternity around the world, or the performing arts fraternity around the world? Any specific thing
Yeah,
that
I
you would
can
like to
just
say?
a little bit repeat the message. I think don't forget, like, we are doing an important work. It's for sure that those people who help the people who are ill are doing an important work. But our side is more on the kind of spiritual side. Like we give them inspiration, we give them even entertainment, we give them joy, things to reflect. And the theater people, the dance people, etc., they are really part of this world. And as long as I have this position, I will support that people has the ability to do what they want to do. And I think now is the time to see that we envision a world that is better. We envision a world that is good for the performing arts and the performing artists, and for the audiences all over the world. A world that is without hegemony, without any superiority, and this starts with us. So like not to start to play games, power games with others, but really to be there for the others and do a good job. And I'm very happy that Aditi and also you, Prasad, are part of this, and you are doing the job you're doing. You do this here, and I think it's very good. And please continue with the Tuesdays with. It's important.
This was actually the last part of the series, so we thought it was wonderful to, for now maybe, just for this moment, to end the series with you and to have you say one final word for all of us. So thank you so much, Tobias. I think, to be very honest, this is the most I have heard you speak in all our interactions, and I'm very, very grateful for that. So thank you so much. And a lot of wonderful people who've joined us across the globe, and it's thank you. I think, Prasad, you want to wrap it up?
Yeah. You have to be aware, we are all the future. Like, yes. We live now and we create the future. I think this is very important.
Yes.
Thank you, Tobias, and thank you everyone who has joined us today. And I mean, I don't want to say too much after the last words of Tobias. So once again, I thank Tobias for sparing time and coming online today. And I'm sure we'll have such conversations often, even if the world comes back to the normalcy. I believe till then we will get used to this online thing, and we might continue having many more such conversations without actually traveling. So thank you very much. Thank you very much, everybody. Thanks for coming. Tobias, thank you once again. सगळ्यांचे मनापासून आभार आणि भेटत राहूया. धन्यवाद.
Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye. Bye bye.